Hey, Sifu Ted.
Hey, if you don't mind, I'm working for my nose.
Oh, of course.
In the Longfist Kung Fu, there are probably specific things that you really enjoy.
You know, I could go on and on and on, Sifu Ted, about what I enjoy about Longfist. But, you know, as a family of styles, I think one of the things that makes it kind of distinct, you know, is that it's really based on the design of the human body, right? And I think that's, of all the things that I keep coming back to over and over, this is something that I think is significant and kind of unique about traditional Chinese Northern Longfist, because it naturally kind of leads to its efficacy as a martial style. It naturally leads to its kind of timeless quality. Also naturally leads to how it intersects with so many other disciplines, right? It's medical benefits.
What are some of the qualities of that style?
Longfist, one of the ways I think about it is we're trying to interpret the fist as the entire body. So rather than think of a fist as a fist, we're trying to put the whole body behind the fist. As how long can we make this fist is kind of the question. And so as our training progresses, as we get more proficient in this style, we learn how to integrate our body, the whole body, again, I think, kind of into the fist.
And what about your own background in martial arts?
You know, my whole life I've been somebody who really values vigorous and intense physical training. And so as a young person, that started for me obviously in team sports, and then eventually I found a niche. I found out that I was really good in powerlifting. So I was lucky that I got some really incredible training as a powerlifter in my early teens, but actually ended up leading me to martial arts. I accumulated a lot of injuries, had pain, discomfort, and you know, you're 17, 18, 19, and you've got hip and back and neck and shoulder pain, and you're wondering what's going on, right? And so I had to find a way to get invested in a rigorous physical practice that would help me undo what I had done to my body as a young person. There wasn't much Kung Fu available, so I had to look really hard. Finally found a Qigong teacher. Ended up that this person was a student of Wen Mei Yu's and Suzy Fang's. And she taught me over the course of 2 years. Her name was Sifu Debbie Liang. She's still in Olympia, Washington, just an outstanding practitioner and teacher of the highest caliber. She taught me Liangong Shiba Fa over 2 years, and that really significantly improved my condition physically, and then also led to me finding my current my daytime job as a Chinese medicine instructor and administrator. That's how I found out about Chinese medicine, was also through the Liangong Shiba Fa. But I knew I wanted more, and I knew that what I wanted was traditional and authentic instruction in traditional Chinese martial arts. And the more I did it, the more I thought I want to approach this professionally someday. You know, I developed an appetite that kind of took off on its own.
What was the thing you were most looking for?
Well, I knew that traditional Chinese martial arts was a profound study. And I knew that you know, it had the potential to become a lifelong study. And so what I wanted was to find a teacher and to find a school that could get me on the right path, so that you know, no matter how far I made it down that path, but I would actually be able to practice Chinese Kung Fu. And the more research I did, I realized how hard that actually is, right? And so when I came here to Santa Cruz, again, to study Chinese medicine, but I found the academy, I mean, it was just like, I felt overwhelmingly fortunate to be in that circumstance, to find a school and teachers that kind of exactly match my appetite.
Did you expect it to take so many years? Which isn't negative necessarily.
No. But, I mean, it's a complicated answer. It's like yes and no. Because I think if you do even just a cursory amount of research on what Chinese Kung Fu is. It's always associated with taking a long time. I mean, even in the movies, right, it's like the students being whipped and whipped and whipped and whipped, and it just thinks they're learning nothing at all, only to find out that they've got it way later on, right? That's kind of the trope. So I knew that going in, that it would be a time investment, and that time investment would be significant. But then what I found out is it's also a lot more than just time. That it's kind of how focused you are in your study and what you're focused on. Because I think that people can spend lifetimes in the art and actually not accomplish much. I think that is kind of a real danger in the traditional arts. And a lot of it has to do with, again, I think the way you study. So what I found was kind of getting through the door was one thing, but then like, wow, how much there is on the other side of that door. That has been a continual discovery. And I'm sure I haven't fully even fathomed the question, actually, but this is my answer right now.
What do you do with new students? Well, first of all, I mean, do you expect there's knowledge there, or how do you react to the typical new student? They're all different.
Kind of what I do when I find a student is I'm grateful first, but kind of what I expect of the student is another question. I think if you're showing up at a Kung Fu school, you should know it's Kung Fu. You should know that it's going to be intense physical training, and you're going to get kind of direct feedback. You should have some appetite for that. But it's not just an exercise class, right? So to me, that's kind of what I expect, is some willingness to learn and grow in Kung Fu as Kung Fu. I expect that when they come through the door. So as long as that willingness is there and there's some recognition of what Chinese Kung Fu is, we can work with almost anybody.
And what about when they do come? What about things like misconceptions?
It's impossible to avoid. This is like the other side of the coin. This is like the other side of the coin of the answer I just gave. Is no matter how much you think you know about Chinese Kung Fu, the point is you have more to learn. So virtually every student comes in with misconceptions, and that's okay. I think that the important thing is that they're able to change, that they're able to learn, that they are willing to learn. It's not meditation practice. While it has ostensibly spiritual elements, this is a physical practice.
Potential students, do they have to be in good shape?
The short answer is no. I get a lot out of the benefits that my students can reap from practice. And so I'm really kind of willing to work with anybody, old, young, in good shape, not in good shape. The point is that they are able to change, that they want to change. And so, you know, one person wants to win trophies and medals, we can help them do that, and they will be able to do that. Another person is coming in and maybe they've got spasticity or limited range of motion and pain because they've recently suffered a stroke. We can help them with that too. Another person wants to work on their self-confidence and their posture, the way they're carrying themselves. We can work with that. No, I think Kung Fu is for everyone.
What would you say is the biggest surprise students suffer?
They will have to deal with themselves. I think that especially in today's consumer culture, there's an exchange and they expect you're going to do the work for them. Kung Fu doesn't really work this way, right? The teacher makes the opportunity to learn possible, kind of opens that door, but the student has to deal with themselves. And they have to be, again, willing to take the instruction from the teacher, apply it to themselves. I do expect that the student has some kind of working, ongoing memory of the instruction I've given. I try and, give my students as many tools as possible I tell them to go home and keep journals. I tell them whatever they can do, even if it's on a napkin when they get in their car, to just draw some stick figures. What did we do today in class, so that they show up next week and it's kind of infiltrated somewhere. If it's like this teacup and we fill it up and they just dump it out, and we fill it up and they dump it out, it's not going anywhere, they're wasting the instruction. To me, it's kind of unacceptable.
Portions here, but how much would you think of as physical exercise?
Well, it all hinges on the designation of physical, right? I mean, ostensibly, again, from the outside, when we're watching someone practice, it looks like they're moving around their body. But when we practice, we know that the experience is way more than that. It cannot be just physical, actually. I think to circle back to the answer to the question about Longfist, even more than your whole body, it's your whole being. That's how long this fist is it's your whole being. So I think the best teachers, like yourself, Sifu Ted, they know how to draw that out of a student. Even when the student doesn't know themselves how to maybe access it, then it's the good teacher's job to engineer circumstances where they discover it.
Do you incorporate a lot of Chinese medicine in what you teach?
Because I'm also a traditional Chinese medicine teacher, my answer will be no. But then if you, from the outside, compared my teaching to any other instructor, you probably would find that I do. So the honest answer is probably yes. But what I'm integrating is a view that comes from Chinese medicine, what the human body is, what a human being is. All that for me comes from Chinese cosmology, and it's informed by Chinese medicine. I'm sure that it's steeped in my teaching. I'm sure my students benefit from it, but I try to not make it technical.
To somewhat echo what you just said, what makes martial arts a good exercise?
The benefits are intrinsic, and that everyone's going to find a benefit. So I would say that's really what makes it a good exercise.
How do you assure that you're really giving the student something truthful?
I really try to teach what I practice. And that's not to say that I'm like giving the students instruction based on what I'm practicing at that time, but it's what I found to be true in the arts.
Is there any additional study? I mean, things like reading books, visiting other schools, or just exposing yourself, one layer or another.
I think when a new student comes in, it's helpful if they have some martial background, insofar as that they can maybe more instantly appreciate what we're offering, what I'm offering. Is it necessary to have outside study? I don't think it is. Is it beneficial? Again, I think it can be just tremendously beneficial to the study of Chinese martial arts. Obviously, Kung Fu has a vocabulary that allows it to discourse seemingly directly with, scientific notions and even disciplines like physics. Is it necessary? Do I expect it? No. Is it added bonus? Tremendous.
How important is the actual fighting? For people who don't get into fights, how important?
And to me, I get hung up on the word fighting. The connotative value of that word fighting is very negative. It's implied in martiality. Like, are there going to be fights? There are going to be fights. Might you get into one? You might get into one. How important is it in the training, though, is the question you're asking me. I mean, I don't think that this quote-unquote real martial aspect of Kung Fu can be avoided. In fact, I think it should be, I think the sooner the student can fully embrace this and recognize the very nature of being a human being includes martiality. So to get comfortable with that, I think, again, it's like there's intrinsic benefits getting comfortable with that. Not to say that fighting is good or the fighting should be encouraged, but just to embrace the full scope of what it means to be human.
What about the question of aggression versus pacifism? I don't think people really listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that.
Yeah.
It's big enough to encompass their lives.
Yes.
Right.
There's a chance to experience it, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that discovering that can be profound.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, we have students who just kind of, once they discover that they have a natural appetite for martiality, it's like something awakens, and it's like they're a new person now,
Yeah.
We get fixated on the notion that it's the physical movements that have the medical benefit. But I think it's actually this kind of discovery inside has, again, it's like the benefit's so profound, you can't even articulate it. I mean, you have to experience it.
Or sometimes articulating the loss of it.
It's also often the case we have at the academy, students who have had previous training, but their orientation to the martial component of martial arts has injured them some way. And the Kung Fu also has a way to kind of bridge this gap or heal this wound as well. So I think that's kind of the other side of it, is some people are hesitant, or maybe they have a negative association and connotation with martiality, which makes them withdraw from it. Other people have been exposed to it in a way that harmed them somehow. But it's kind of like it's going to be the same treatment that's going to heal both circumstances.
Sometimes seems like one part of that process is actually the opposite of what you normally do, which is to overload. Willing, but that's generally reserved for people who are pretty far along.
Yeah, sometimes with an advanced student, the fact that they're advanced actually makes it more difficult to teach them.
Yes.
I hope it's not the case with me, Sifu.
And in a sense, the nature of Kung Fu is so sophisticated that you're always looking for something to give you that much more understanding, because that's maybe 5 years. It would be a big help to know these things.
Yeah, we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And we may spend a lot of time and energy trying to unravel that. Yeah.
It's like with the Tao Te Ching. You read it and it says, this is true, and this comes from it. But that's really difficult. You actually have a vacuum break in the middle there, and then you have to hold that with you while you search. Going into Kung Fu, and I have about 5 years of training. What do you think I should do?
I mean, that is kind of the question, is what style you practiced previously. Generally speaking, something like 5 years of previous training, while it may sound significant to someone outside the arts, I think we know 5 years might mean a lot, it might mean nothing at all. My recommendation, if you're coming to study Chinese Kung Fu and you're coming and you're kind of want instruction from a new instructor to you, the best thing is to put your previous training aside. You've already got the benefits of it. Your body's already changed from it or not. And there's really nothing you can do about that, but what you can do is make yourself available to actually learn. So maybe you can do the splits, and maybe you can execute a technically proficient tornado kick or broom kick or whatever, which is nothing to scoff at, right? But at the same time, you've got that. So kind of put it aside so that you can learn something new, so you can have an opportunity to change. That would be my advice to somebody. Well, great, keep those skills, but also, take the opportunity to actually learn Kung Fu.